Welcome back to another Team 6K video. This is Undead bringing you an advanced guide to Dark Magicians. First of all, we have Apprentice Illusion Magician, a level 6 2K spellcaster. You can special summon it by discarding any card, and if this card is normal or special summon, keep in mind you could tribute summon it and still get its effect. So if this card is normal or special summon, you add a Dark Magician from deck to hand. During damage calculation, if your other dark spellcaster battles an opponent's monster, that means if you attack them or if they attack you, you can send this card from your hand or face up from your field to the grave, and then that monster you control gains 2000 attack and defense during that damage calculation only. What's great about that is Dark Magician is only 2500 attack, and it is the biggest monster in our main deck, and if we are planning to summon it often, because it is a Dark Magician deck, we do want to have some way to allow it to win in battle sometimes, you know what I mean? And something nice about this is you could attack with Apprentice Illusion first, then attack with Dark Magician and tribute the Illusion Magician, so that way you get more damage off of the Illusion Magician. What's also great is if you have two Illusion Magicians on the field, your opponent has to pick one of them to attack, right? But the other one will be able to protect the other one by tributing itself and making it gain 2000 attack. Of course, we have Magical Circle. When this card is activated, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and you reveal a Dark Magician or a spell trap that mentions Dark Magician, and then you can add it to your hand, and then the remaining cards you put them on the top of your deck in any order you choose. You do have to keep in mind that this card won't add a monster that mentions Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. It only adds a spell trap or Dark Magician himself specifically. So if you wanted to put in Dark Magician Girl, this card would also not add it to your hand, even though it has Dark Magician in its name. And then while it's face up on the field, it has another effect, that if you summon a Dark Magician, then you can target any card your opponent controls and banish it. What's so great about using traps to summon Dark Magician instead of spells essentially turns our circle into an interruption on our opponent's turn. If we summon a Dark Magician on our opponent's turn, we get to banish one of their cards with a circle, and then technically if we summon it during our own turn again, we get to banish again. It is worth noting that that banishment effect is a hard once per turn, so if you summon more than one Dark Magician, you will still only get one banish. Then we have the cards that will summon Dark Magician itself: Magician's Navigation and Eternal Soul. So first of all, Magician's Navigation lets you special summon a Dark Magician from your hand, special summon a level 7 or lower dark spellcaster type from your deck. So that could be an Apprentice Illusion, it could be Magician's Rod, it could be Dark Magician, it could be Kaiku. So the turn after it's sent to the graveyard, by any means, you can banish it from your grave while you control a Dark Magician to target a back row on the field and negate it. So if you have a Dark Magician on the field and this in the grave, it essentially turns your Dark Magician into a spell trap negate. Eternal Soul: any Dark Magician on your field is unaffected by your opponent's card effects. But the downside is that if it leaves the field, it destroys all monsters that you control. So if your opponent has any way to get rid of it, this card becomes a lot worse. And then you can only activate one of these activated effects per turn. You can special summon a Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard, or you can add a dark magic attack or Thousand Knives to your hand. I'll explain why I'm not playing either of those cards in a second. These back row, of course, we are able to search for it with Magician's Rod. If this card is normal summon, you can add a spell trap card from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Dark Magician in its text. And then during your opponent's turn, if you activate a spell trap card or effect while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can tribute a spellcaster, add this card to your hand. Of course, Magician's Rod and Magician's Navigation are both limited to 3, so we cannot play more than a total of 3 copies between these 2 cards. So you might then ask, why not just play 3 Eternal Soul and 3 Magician's Rod, right? Why even play Magician's Navigation in the first place? If we can have maximum consistency with a Magician's Rod to have our Eternal Soul, then we wouldn't need the Magician's Navigation, right? But the issue is Eternal Soul's downside is so incredibly detrimental that we need some way to protect it. The most common way of getting rid of Eternal Soul is with a card like MST, Cosmic Cyclone, both of which are spell traps, both of which can be negated by Magician's Navigation. So generally speaking, what this deck is aiming to do is summon Dark Magician using Navigation first, and then once we have used our Navigation, then we can go ahead and set up our Eternal Soul so that Eternal Soul can now be the main way that we can summon our Dark Magicians. But of course we still do want to play the one copy of Magician's Rod, because it does represent the third copy of Navigation. It also represents the fourth copy of Circle and the third copy of Eternal Soul. Since this is the main normal summon of the deck, but we only have one copy of it, we don't need to feel so bad about having other normal summons in the deck as well. These are our two other normal summons. I say these two are our other normal summons because this searches for this, which would be a normal summon, right? So this of course just adds a spellbook card to hand, okay? And this is a spellbook card, Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. On normal, a flip summon, it adds a spellbook card to hand, and what we will add is Spellbook of Knowledge, which you can send another spellbook card from your hand to the grave, or you can tribute a spellcaster to draw 2 cards. If you open this, you search this, normal summon this, search this, tribute this, and draw 2 cards. Or if you open this, you can search this, and then this will search this, and then this will tribute this to draw 2 cards. This of course is not a card that you want to have without these 2 cards, because then you might have to tribute one of your other spellcasters. But thankfully, as a spellcaster deck, we can at least, get around that. We are okay with tributing one of our other spellcasters if we so need to. So in total we have 3 normal summons in the deck, which means it's very unlikely for us to brick on having multiple normal summons. But technically speaking, we could also say that Kaiku is another normal summon, even though we're planning to summon it from the deck from Magician's Navigation. That makes it the brick of the deck. But what this guy does and why he's so good that we need to play him in the deck for our navigation is that your opponent cannot banish cards from either player's graveyard. A lot of really good graveyard removal effects in the game. There's also a lot of really good cards that have the cost of banishing cards from the grave, but having the Kaiku on the field means that they can't use any of those effects. So being able to use the navigation to summon it from the deck to prevent them from getting off what they need to get off is going to be very helpful for you. But generally speaking, if we're not summoning Kaiku, we're going to be summoning a copy of Apprentice Illusion alongside our Dark Magician, so that way our Dark Magician is basically battle protected, or at least the opponent will be dissuaded from attacking it. Also, we will always be playing the 3 copies of Dark Magician himself. It is not going to be great for you if you draw multiple copies of Dark Magician, but that is the risk you unfortunately have to run when you're playing a Dark Magician based deck. We do want to see him in our hand pretty much every game on the first turn if we want to be able to use Navigation and then Eternal Soul. What's kind of nice about having multiple as well is if we for some reason have multiple Apprentice Illusion Magician, right? Apprentice Illusion Magician, none of her effects are actually a once per turn. So what you could do is Apprentice Illusion Magician, discard a card, add Dark Magician, and then that Dark Magician that you added to your hand can be the new discard fodder for your second Apprentice Illusion Magician. You're going to be adding a Dark Magician to your hand again anyway. It's as if you're discarding nothing, right? The great thing about the fact that Apprentice Illusion Magician can discard is that you could potentially, if you have 2 traps, you could discard one of them if that is Magician's Navigation, so that on your opponent's turn, if you summon a Dark Magician, you'll already have the spell trap negate without having to wait a turn. There's not a whole lot of room for tech choices, so you have to be very, very careful about your tech choices. Here I decided to play Mystical Space Typhoon. I believe it is undoubtedly the best option you could be playing. If your opponent has set an MST, as it is a very good card, you will be able to use your MST to get rid of it, so that they can't use their MST to get rid of your circle. And if they get rid of your circle in response to it activating, you don't even get to add a card to your hand. So being able to prevent that is going to be great. Additionally, Mekknights, being able to get rid of Mekknight back row is so important. Infernoids as well, we also have to get rid of the Infernoid back row so that they don't overwhelm us with their advantage. Imduck requires any normal monster at all except for a token. So what's kind of nice about that is if we have an Eternal Soul on the field, we can turn our Dark Magician into an Imduck, right? And then we can use Eternal Soul to revive the Dark Magician. Imduck is just a nice way to get our normal Dark Magician into the grave so we can resummon it. That way we get more bodies on the field, and potentially we could trigger the effective circle to banish your opponent's card again. What's also nice about Imduck, and the reason we play 2 copies of it, is of course I do play the one because I want to do what I just mentioned, but I also play one so that I could potentially turn my Dark Magician effectively into an effect monster so that I could use it for the summon of Decode Talker. Decode Talker specifically requires effect monsters, but it is really nice to play in a grind game in this deck. If we can summon Decode Talker and summon something to the zone that it points to, then we're going to be able to protect our Eternal Soul, our Circle, any of our cards from targeting by tributing something that it points to. Nightmare Unicorn, you know, if we could summon Decode Talker, but we could instead go for game with Nightmare Unicorn, we might as well just go for Unicorn anyway, you know what I mean? And then in Puzzlemino, we're actually not really going to be using this for its effect, but technically speaking, you can use it for its effect. So it is 2 monsters with different levels. If a monster is summoned to a zone that it points to, you get to declare a level from 1 to 8, and that monster becomes that level to the end of the turn. That's kind of nice if you want to go for an Xyz play, but generally speaking, the only reason we would go into this is because of Magician Navigation needing you to control 2 open main monster zones for you to activate it. Sometimes we're going to have a situation where we have a normal summon on the field and an apprentice on the field, and therefore we only have 1 main monster zone active. So we can just turn those 2 monsters into a Puzzlemino and it'll be all good. But why Puzzlemino instead of any other Link monster, right? Any other Link too, they would all suffice, right? What's great about Puzzlemino, of course, it is a spellcaster, and what's so great about it being a spellcaster, you might remember about Magician's Rod, that during your opponent's turn, if you activate a spell trap while it's in the graveyard, you contribute a spellcaster and add it to your hand. So I contribute my Puzzlemino because it's a spellcaster to get another search next turn with Magician's Rod. Photon Strike Bouncer, you're only really going to summon this in hands where you've got 2 Apprentice Illusion Magician. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a monster effect is activated on your opponent's side of the field, you can detach an Xyz material, negate the effect. So I have a Ebon Illusion Magician, requires 2 level 7s. You could use 2 Dark Magicians, which is what I usually do, but you could also turn one of your other monsters into a level 7 with Puzzlemino. And basically what it does is once per turn you can detach an Xyz material from this card, special summon a spellcaster type normal monster from your hand or deck, which is always going to be Dark Magician, right? And then if a spellcaster type normal monster declares an attack, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and banish it. You attack with a normal monster, get rid of whatever is in your way, and then attack with the Ebon Illusion, and that's a great OTK play right there. And of course for the skill we have Destiny Draw. Destiny Draw is great because if they go ahead and attack us, they don't kill us, we're generally going to be able to search for any card in our deck that we would need for the particular time. We could search for Spellbook of Secrets, which will essentially turn it into a Pot of Greed because we'll get this, draw 2 cards. So we will have 2 cards in our hand instead of 1. We could also search for a Rod to give us our Circle, a Rod to give us one of our traps in case our opponent got rid of them. We learned before that Eternal Soul can add Dark Magic Attack or 1,000 Knives from your deck to your hand. Dark Magic Attack, if you control Dark Magician, will destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. And then 1,000 Knives will target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it as long as you control Dark Magician. The issue with these cards is that Circle essentially does what it does already. Of course, Dark Magic Attack will destroy all of their back row, and Circle would only be able to target one of them, right? But Navigation would be able to negate another one. That's already 2 back row gone. And then on the following turn, we could summon another Dark Magician with Ebon or Eternal Soul, and Circle will get rid of the 3rd. And these are all cards that we're going to be playing regardless, no matter what. So I would rather not brick on the Dark Magic Attack, because the Dark Magic Attack, of course, just like the Eye of Timaeus, is going to be sitting in your hand until the 2nd turn, because you're not going to have a Dark Magician on the field on the 1st turn. And then 1,000 Knives, if you even, after everything I said, you still like Dark Magic Attack, there is still no good, there would be absolutely no justifiable reason for 1,000 Knives. Just target 1 monster and destroy it, where Circle targets any card and banish it. I do want to mention really quick before I move on that if you only wanted to play 2 Eternal Soul, or if you wanted to play 1 Eternal Soul, or if you wanted to play 3 Eternal Soul, I am not necessarily against any of those ratios. I personally feel like 1 is the bare minimum, right? But 3 is a bit too much. I think having 2 is great because you're going to get it after you've used your Navigation. Navigation is the priority, right? But Eternal Soul is nice to draw every now and then. Another card that is played way too much, probably more than others, that should not be played at all is Pot of Duality. It lets you excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add one of them to your hand, and after that shuffle the rest back into the deck. You can only activate 1 per turn, and you cannot special summon the entire turn that you activate that card. So it sounds a little bit familiar, right? It sounds just like Dark Magical Circle. It's just that Circle doesn't prevent you from special summoning, and being able to special summon is pretty important. We are going to need to use Apprentice to search for Dark Magician. If we do not have Dark Magician, then our navigation and our soul don't mean anything. Everything that we do doesn't mean anything unless we have a Dark Magician. So playing 3 copies of this for our consistency means that we cannot play Pot of Duality. Additionally, if you top deck a Pot of Duality, it is not going to be helpful for you either, because after the first turn you're going to be special summoning a lot more than you think. Another silly thing that people like to do in Dark Magicians is they like to play more spellbook cards, right? Of course we have the spellbooks here, but they're just here to draw us cards, right? They're here to give us what we need. We need soul, we need nav, we need circle, right? We need Dark Magician. We need all these things, so we're going to play a little spellbook engine, so we're going to help us get those easier. But if we're going to be trying to play Dark Magician, we don't need these things. We already have all that we need in our own engine, and the spellbooks are only going to help us get to that engine. But if we fill our deck with a bunch of spellbook cards, then the spellbook of knowledge is just going to draw us bricks. The thing is, if you want to mix decks together, they have to have inherent synergy. Dark Magician and spellbooks, despite both being spellcaster decks that rely a little bit on back row, they don't actually synergize. They don't benefit each other, apart from this little engine here. Despite that though, if we have used our spellbook engine at all, it means that we have 3 spellbook cards in the graveyard. What's kind of nice is we have a rank 7 here, Hierophant of Prophecy, that lets us detach 1 material and destroy spell traps our opponent controls equal to the number of spellbook cards in the grave. So that would be 1, 2, 3. Even now, if you wanted to play Dark Magic Attack, you could just put Dark Magic Attack in the extra deck with Hierophant of Prophecy. But yeah, this deck is actually very simple to play. The issue is, the more simple a deck is, the more it will open you up to making bad decisions. I'm going to show you real quick some good decisions you can make while you're playing this deck. Alright, so this is what I would consider a god hand, and what a lot of people might do is they might activate Dark Magical Circle, which they can 100% do, but before I activate Circle, I like to thin the deck as much as possible so that I'm getting, you know, the best chances I get. So if I have 16 cards in my deck and I activate Circle, right, that means I'm looking at the top 3 out of 16, but if I thin the deck, I use Illusion Magician to get a Dark Magician out of my deck, and I'm looking at the top 3 out of 15. Mathematically, that means that we have a higher chance of getting to see the cards we want to see. So I'm going to use this, and of course I'm going to discard a Magician's Navigation. Obviously I don't want to discard the Circle, but what's great about discarding Navigation is that if I summon a Dark Magician on my opponent's turn now, this Navigation will have been in the graveyard for 2 turns, well, for a full turn, right? And therefore it'll be able to negate an opponent's spell or trap. So then now I can activate the Circle. So this is just the first good decision that you can make, you know, using your Navigation before your Circle. Another thing is, generally speaking, if your Circle shows a Circle or a Dark Magician, these are not the cards you're trying to get, right? The Circle is trying to get one of your traps from the deck. But if you have to choose between Circle and a Dark Magician, always pick the Circle, okay? Because the Navigation is going to be able to summon an Illusion Magician from the deck, which on summon, even during the opponent's turn, will get you another Dark Magician anyway. So you might as well get the Circle because you're already going to have a Dark Magician. It doesn't really matter if you have Navigation, what order you put the cards on top of your deck, but you know, obviously you're not going to put Dark Magician on the very top if you have a choice. I'm going to set the Navigation. The opponent's going to do what they do, I'm just going to skip past it. The opponent has summoned Decode Talker here, and Decode Talker can tribute a monster that it points to, so if it's in this zone, to negate something it targets, and Dark Magical Circle's effect to banish a card does in fact target, so I'm just going to go ahead and use Navigation immediately. So I will summon a Dark Magician from my hand, and here in this particular situation I'm going to summon Apprentice Illusion Magician from the deck, so that not only do I search for another Dark Magician, but also it will mean that I have 2 Apprentice Illusion Magicians on the field. You might remember that if you have 2 Apprentice Illusions on the field, it becomes very tough for your opponent to attack into you. What's also nice about the Apprentice Illusion Magician is that on summon, right, I will get to target my opponent's thing with a Dark Magical Circle, right? Because my Dark Magician has been summoned on a new chain. Dark Magical Circle will be able to get rid of the opponent's Decode Talker, right? But he already has something he can tribute. But what's great is that Apprentice Illusion Magician will be able to chain block it. So I'm going to target Decode Talker, and Apprentice Illusion Magician will activate right away. And because Apprentice Illusion Magician is here, Decode Talker cannot negate me anymore. And Decode Talker is gone. And now that they've activated a spell trap, because of the navigation that I put there last turn, I can go ahead and negate that. They don't want to attack me, right? Because even if they attack my 0 attack monster here, this one will just boost it up by 2000, making it a useless battle. So from here I can just very easily use my Dark Magician, summon my Kaiku here as well for some more flexing, go into Nightmare Unicorn, 1, 2, 3, discard Dark Magician, get rid of his Code Talker, and just attack for game, right? I could also just activate the Dark Magical Circle. There's a good chance maybe I get an Eternal Soul. I didn't get it in this case, but you know, I was going to go for game anyway, so who cares, right? Alright, so here you can see I do have an abundance of options in my hand. I could use Circle first, I could use Spellbook first, I could use my Illusion first, right? There's so much I can do here, and it could be Ashbait, it could be whatever I want. I want to use my Spellbook first, to be honest with you. This is usually what I do. Technically speaking, you do not have to do it this way, but if you want to optimize your play, you're going to want to optimize what order you do obvious things in. So the Spellbook, why I do it first, if I have the option to do it at all, is because I have cards I can discard now that I don't feel bad about discarding. If I discarded the Circle, right, and then I didn't draw into another Circle with a Spellbook later, I would have felt bad. If I discarded the Navigation with an Apprentice and then didn't draw into a trap later, I would have felt bad. Now I can feel good about discarding anything. So I'm going to discard the Dark Magician because I'm going to get myself another Dark Magician anyway. And then I can use my Circle last. I've already thinned the deck by a decent amount. I can grab myself a Navigation here. Unfortunately, I did draw the Kaiku, but you know, it happens sometimes. But here I have 2 Navigation. If they have a background removal for one, I can always just use the other one. Alright, so here I'm in a spot where our opponent has Link Slayer. They can discard up to 2 cards and destroy that many back row. So, in order to prevent him from being able to do that, I'm just going to use the Navigation right away. Because if I chain my Navigation to him targeting my Circle, Circle will be destroyed before Circle will be able to go into a new chain to banish it. So I have to do it preemptively. And I'll summon the Illusion from my deck to make it difficult for him to attack into me. And I will banish his Link Slayer. Apprentice will search a new Dark Magician. And something that I should note about Navigation, if he somehow got rid of 2 of my monsters, I could use Navigation again. I wouldn't be able to banish again with Circle, but I would be able to summon using Navigation. Here he's attacking me. I don't feel so bad about it. I think I'm just going to let it go through because I don't care too much. He will pierce into me with his effects. I don't care. I top deck MST, that makes things easier for me, but if I did not top deck MST, I do have the Navigation engraved to negate whatever he was going to use. And now I have a Navigation set that I set last turn, so I can very easily just go ahead, turn this into an effect monster so that I can summon my own Decode Talker. Activate my Navigation now, summon Dark Magician to the zone Decode Talker points to. So now, if he wants to target me, I can negate it by destroying, by contributing my own Dark Magician. I can banish his decode talker that points to nothing, and as you see, I can very easily just go for game. So this is one of those awkward scenarios in which we do not actually have a choice, and we can only do what we can only do. So I'm going to activate Circle, and unfortunately all I get is another Eternal Soul. And here, what I think a lot of people would mistakenly do is they will set both Eternal Souls. This would be a misplay. If the opponent has a lot of back row removal, they'll be able to use it immediately on all your Eternal Souls. But what if they don't have any back row removal at all, and your Eternal Souls are just stuck there? Then you have one redundant Eternal Soul that's on your field, and any other back row that you want to play later on will be unactivatable. So you should only set the one, right? Sometimes good decision making isn't what you can do, but what you shouldn't do. But yeah, man, these are just some of the good decisions you can make while playing this deck. Of course, there's no substitute for experience. So I'm going to show you some actual ranked replays. I always go on a lot of high win streaks with this deck. It is one of my favorites, of course. And of course, while I heavily recommend you play the deck this way, you can build the deck however you so choose to. I'm just here to show you how to play the deck. But yeah, let's just get into the gameplay, shall we? Alright, so here we actually have two spellbook cards. We have the Blue Boy and we have the Secrets. In this particular situation, what you're going to do is you're going to use Secrets and not normal summon the Prophecy, because the Knowledge is going to be able to discard the Prophecy anyway. This way, we are going to be able to top deck anything, and if we happen to top deck another normal summon, we will still be able to normal summon it. Of course, we do have the Apprentice, so we're going to discard the Dark Magician so we can thin our deck, get another Dark Magician, so that the two cards that we draw off of the Knowledge will have a better chance, right? Because we already thinned the deck a little bit, you know what I mean? We don't happen to draw any normal summons, but if we did, we would have been good. But here, we just have the best situation possible. We have a Dark Magician in hand, Illusion on field, an Eternal Soul, and a Magician's Navigation. Now, from this position, if you have a Navigation and an Eternal Soul, obviously you're going to use the Navigation first. This deck's main focus is to use Navigation before Soul, but even if you are going to use Soul, use it as very sparingly as possible. Use it at the very last moment that you have to. So they're going to be playing Mekknights. Very difficult deck to interrupt here. They're going for second, which is what they want to go, you know what I mean? He's going to be able to search a card. So you'll see when we interrupt them. Most of these things are not worth interrupting because he was just going to have more follow-ups available to him. It goes all the way until he special summons his YOLO Star. What he can do is he can banish a Mekknight from graveyard to destroy a spell trap that's in the same column. So I don't want him to destroy my circle because I want to be able to banish something. So before he gets the chance to activate that effect, I'm going to use my Navigation, summon my Dark Magician, and my Kaiku. And what the Kaiku is going to allow me to do is now he cannot banish at all. He can't banish from his graveyard in the first place. So I am free to banish one of his back row. Right, I already want to banish one of his back row because one of his back row can negate monster effects, but I think to myself, I already have Navigation to negate that. This is a mystery back row right here. I want to get rid of that, so I get rid of that. It happens to be World Legacy Succession. They attack into my Illusion, they attack into my Kaiku. I'm okay with that though, because I've already gotten my usage out of them. So I'm going to resummon my Dark Magician at the last moment. I won't be able to banish because of course Circle is a once per turn, but of course I want to be able to use Eternal Soul next turn. You know, I'm just getting all this card advantage. I'm going to turn my one Dark Magician into an Imduck. I'm leaving one Dark Magician on the field so I can negate his back row. He's going to activate his Secret. I'm going to negate it immediately. Now I'm going to be able to use Eternal Soul again, banish him, and now I can go into Ebon Illusion Magician, summon another Dark Magician. And now here, if I attack with Imduck, right, Imduck actually has a sneaky secondary effect, right? That if at the beginning of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster that it points to and it points up, you can destroy that opponent's monster. Okay, so that I use that and I take advantage of the fact that nobody knows that effect to attack into my opponent's Indigo Eclipse and destroy it at the beginning of the damage step. Ebon Illusion and Magician will activate as soon as I attack with Dark Magician to banish his YOLO Star, so now I'm just attacking directly. Alright, I'm going first here. It's, you know, it's an iffy hand, but thankfully for me, I already have a Dark Magician and a Circle, and I have an Eternal Soul, so no matter what happens with my Circle, I'm at least doing something alright. But thankfully for me, I do get a Magician's Navigation, so I'm going to set both of my traps here, because I can always just use MST for my hand next turn. And I'm going to try my best to use Navigation first, and Eternal Soul only when I most need it. So he's going to summon his Dragon Knight of Creation. What he sent was his Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand, and if this guy is special summoned from the grave, it gets to banish one of my cards. Pretty damn good. I don't want him to do that, and Dragon Knight of Creation allows him to discard a level 7 or 8 dragon from his hand to revive one of his dragons, and he would revive this. I don't want him to do it, so I'm going to preemptively, before he gets a chance to activate it, I'm going to use my Magician's Navigation. So that way I'll be able to banish his Dragon Knight of Creation, I'll be able to search another Dark Magician, chain block if he has any negations, of course he doesn't though, and he just scoops because he knows that I got rid of his entire game plan. This is actually something that's going to happen a lot if you're going to play Dark Magician. If you go first and you have the combo and you banish the right thing, right? You have to banish the right thing. They will often scoop, but they won't scoop if you banish the wrong thing. So you need to study every deck, find out what card would hurt them the most, or at the very least, what card would hurt you the most if you didn't banish it. Alright, so this hand is a little bit awkward, of course. I do have Rod, which is a great card to have, and I do have Spellbook of Knowledge. Spellbook of Knowledge is not a great card to have if you do not have the other Spellbook cards, but if you do have another Spellcaster, it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to use my Rod to search for Circle. Before I activate Circle, I'm going to use Knowledge. Does this matter? Does it matter whether or not I use the Knowledge or the Circle first? That's something you got to think about for yourself. My conclusion is, right, that if I activate Circle, maybe I add something to my hand and then I stack the top 2 cards of my deck. I know what those 2 cards are, so when I go to activate Knowledge, I know what I'm going to draw. Unfortunately, sometimes the 2 cards you put on the top of your deck aren't going to be that great to draw, so I might prefer to use Knowledge and then Circle first. Technically, the Knowledge will make the deck thinner, maybe it'll make the Circle hit better cards, you know what I mean? But mainly, to me, I don't want to feel like I'm stuck by the 2 cards. I would rather have it to be 2 cards that I don't know of, just for my own sanity. But you know, there's that. Thankfully for me, I top deck into an Illusion Magician. Great. The one thing I was really missing was a Dark Magician, so I have it. And I have one in grave as well. I've thinned the deck quite a lot, so now the Circle will give me what I want. I have an MST and I have a Navigation, so it's going to be great for me. He's playing Favorite Hero, very good skill. He's going to be able to 1-card Fusion Summon, but he's also playing Magical Muskets, so he's a bit of a fusion of 2 decks, so to speak. I want to get rid of his Caspar, or if he has a Forbidden Lance in his hand, I want to get rid of the Forbidden Lance immediately. So I'm going to summon. I'm also going to get a Kaiku here. The Kaiku is going to be able to prevent him from using Miracle Fusion. I'm going to try to banish him. Magician's Rod is going to get rid of my Illusion Magician, because even though Illusion Magician is great to have on the field, Rod is even better to have in the hand, because I'm going to be able to have guaranteed follow-up next turn. He is going to lance his Caspar, however, he does it in the zone that his Caspar is in, the column, so he's going to be able to search for a Desperado. He's going to set a card, and what I should have done when he set a card is maybe I should have Mystical Space Typhooned his set card, but I didn't think that he was going to activate Desperado immediately after setting it. I was going to wait a little bit before destroying it, but he's going to go ahead and Desperado my Kaiku. Since the Kaiku is now destroyed, he can now activate Miracle Fusion. He summons Neos Knight, which is going to be pretty big. He's going to be able to attack over Dark Magician, but he doesn't do any damage as a part of his effect, and I don't know why he attacks directly if he can't do damage anyway, but he's going to go for 400. He has some back row in his hand that he can activate because this is a Magical Musket deck, but I do have a Rod here. I'm going to get my Eternal Soul. I also have, this was actually a little bit of a thing. I don't think I'm going to be able to use MST this whole game. So what I could do is use MST, destroy my own circle, activate circle again, maybe get another trap, and then whatever I draw, maybe I could discard that with the Apprentice Illusion. But that is not a guaranteed thing you can do with circle. So I thought, just so I can guarantee my own success, I might as well just discard the circle anyway and get my Apprentice, search a Dark Magician anyway, have the Eternal Soul, I'll be all set anyway. So it's sometimes better to go for the guaranteed plus than the really sacky, overpowered plus. Guaranteeing yourself victory is better than hoping for an overpowered victory. But yeah, I'm going to be able to break his whole board here, right? He's going to use Dancing Needle to banish cards from my graveyard. I'm not going to be able to negate it because I do not have a Dark Magician on the field. I just have 2 Engrave and a Navigation. And that's actually what is going to banish, which is a great thing to banish. I'm attacking, though, with Apprentice Illusion. He's only activating it now because his musket is about to die. It's unfortunate for me, but I do have a soul, a circle, and a DM in hand, so I'm all good. And what's great is I attack with Illusion first, so that I get rid of his Caspar. Then I tribute the Illusion to make this guy 36, so I can beat over his Neos Knight. And now I still have an interruption my opponent's turn with the Eternal Soul. And if I do summon a Dark Magician, I will not have a negate, but he is only going for fusions now. Right, this is kind of an issue with fusion decks. It's definitely a cool idea, but if you're going to play Magical Muskets, you probably should just be going for a pure musket deck. I'm going to let him cook for a second, and then I'm going to banish him, and he's going to have nothing left, of course. Alright, this is a great hand. I love having Rod. I don't know, when I press the record button, I get Rod more often. I'm going to be able to search Navigation, discard Navigation if the circle gives me Eternal Soul. It does give me Eternal Soul, but I actually discard the MST instead because I'm like, damn, I'm going to be able to activate both of these on the opponent's turn. I'm going to turn these two into a Link Monster, right? And then I'm going to set these 2 back row. And I think that because of my opponent's character that they're probably playing Code Talkers, I don't think that negating back row is going to be insanely relevant against them. So I think if I just banish them with Navigation, summon another Illusion, then I'll have another Dark Magician to summon my Eternal Soul, I'll be all good. But he's going to combo off, he's got MST, he's getting rid of my circle, I cannot banish him anymore. So I have to be even more careful about the way I use my Navigation and my Eternal Soul. So when you have no circle on the field, you have to be very careful, okay? Use these at the absolute last moment, okay? Here he summons his Link Slayer and has 2 cards in hand. I'm like, okay, if you discard 2 cards to destroy my 2 back row, I will chain my Navigation. I have a new Dark Magician in my hand and I'll have 3 monsters on the field. You will only have the Link Slayer. So, because of that, I'm like, you're not going to activate Link Slayer at all. And I was exactly right. He's just not going to activate the Link Slayer at all. He's just going to combo off with it. Cyber Switch. What I could have done here is I could have used the Navigation to summon Kaiku to prevent him from banishing a spell from grave to activate the effect of Cyber Switch. That would have been pretty nice. It would have prevented him from coming off, but I don't know what the last card in his hand is. It could be anything. I want him to show off more of what he has before I commit to something. And I'm going to survive anyway, so I'm fine. He's going to go off, he's going to add his ritual and his ritual spell. He's going to use his witch to revive. He's going to use his ritual spell to summon his Cyberse Magician. Thankfully for me, Cyberse Magician's effect isn't even that good in the first place. The only real reason to play Cyberse Magician is because of how damn good Cyberse Witch is. But yeah, he's going to go into Decode Talker here. I can no longer target him, but that's fine. I wasn't planning on targeting him anyway. What's going to be nice about this, he's going to activate Code Talker Alive. If you saw my last video, you know what this skill does. He's going to set his Silent Crosswipe. I'm going to use Navigation right now because he is attacking with a Cyberse Magician into my Puzzlemino. This guy will gain 1000 attack if it's attacking a Link monster, so he would be doing 2200 damage to me. That is a lot. It will activate my Destiny Draw, and if he is able to use his trap, he will probably be able to kill me if things go badly for me. So I would rather get rid of my Puzzlemino. And how can I get rid of my Puzzlemino? I have Magician's Rod in the grave, so I can activate Nav, and because I activated Nav, I can tribute my Puzzlemino so I don't have it on the field anymore. He doesn't get his boost. So I'm going to be able to get this off. I can turn this into a level 7 in case it somehow survives. I don't think it will, but if it stays level 7, I'll summon a level 7 another Dark Magician from deck so I can get more banishes, because this is going to guarantee me a circle. As you see, I'm really going off here. He attacks intelligently into my apprentice first. It's a very good play from him. Then he attacks into my Dark Magician, but thankfully for me, I do have Eternal Soul. He did not attack directly with Decode Talker because he didn't want to activate my Destiny Draw. Also another smart play from him. Thankfully for me, because I have the Rod, I can get myself a circle. Now I've got my banishing play off again, and because he doesn't want me to use this, he is going to try to get rid of me. He's going to try to get rid of my Eternal Soul, right? Thankfully for me, I already have the navigation from last turn. This is exactly why I have it. I'm going to negate the sign of crosswipe. I'm going to be able to attack into his Decode Talker. I know that he has his trap, so he could banish the Decode Talker from his graveyard to summon another Link 3. But now I can use Eternal Soul, summon Dark Magician. Here I was deciding which one I was going to banish, but before I could do it, he scooped, because realistically he had 2 cards left and I had like 7. So I won by a card advantage basically. But yeah, man, that's how the deck works. If you want to play this deck, go ahead. It is pretty expensive, I can't lie, but it is one of the most fun decks I've ever played for sure. If you like Dark Magician, if you like this deck, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you next time.